Starliner Media. Starliner Media presents Music Night at the Majestic with your host, Michael Boswell.
All right, it's time once again for Music Night at the Majestic. With us tonight, Carmine Appice. Carmine, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you. Well, tell you what, for a guy who is, arguably the most legendary rock drummer there is, when I listen to you, I hear R&B and jazz roots. Am I accurate?
You got it. Totally. R&B and jazz. I before I joined the Pigeons, Vanilla Fudge, I played, as they did, a lot of R&B in the clubs with some rock. And then growing up, I listened to jazz. I listened to like my favorite jazz drummers like Buddy Rich, Gene Krupa, Joe Morello, Max Roach, Philly Joe Jones, all those kind of guys. So that was my roots when I was learning how to play. And I played jazz with different bands throughout my teen years. When I was, we play all kinds of gigs. Play weddings, jazz gigs. Bar mitzvahs. We played rock dances. All that kind of stuff when I was growing up, which really rounds you out as a musician.
Yeah,
that makes you able to play anything. And when I was at Cactus, I played a song called Alaska that had brushes. And that's a lost art today. I mean, most of these kids today never even seen a brush,
Yeah. Well, tell me this, what was it that drove you to play drums initially?
Well, I guess I had the urn to do it because my cousin, Joey, who's older than me, used to have a drum set in his house. He played drums. And every time I went to his house, I would go on and play his drums, And then when I go home, I'd start banging on the pots and pans. And my parents used to buy me, like toy drum sets for Christmas, and I'd break them. And then finally, because my birthday is close to Christmas, 10 days apart, they said, well, how about if we get you a drum set, a real drum set? And I said, wow. So we went to the very first Sam Ash store was in Brooklyn, where I grew up, and on top of a high shelf was this drum set. It was really a drum, a bass drum and a snare drum and a cymbal, and it cost $55. And so that was my Christmas and birthday present that year. And I was, I don't know, 10, 11 years old, I mean, I didn't believe in Santa Claus anymore. So, so I went there and helped him pick it out. And I used that. And that was like, for me, it was amazing. I went down to my cellar and I put bricks and had cement, cinder blocks. My grandparents had an old antique tabletop down there. I remember putting it on the cinder blocks with support in the middle and everything. I put the drums on it on a little rug, and I was like my stage. And I'm talking like a Brooklyn cellar. It had stone on the wall. It wasn't a finished basement or anything. My grandfather used to be a shoemaker, so he had a little shoemaker area of the right in front of me. And sometimes I'd be trying to practice, and he'd be banging the shoes, and it would throw all my tempo off because he was in a different tempo doing that. I remember asking him, and then he started cursing at me in Italian. So I asked him to play in this tempo, not like this, And then he cursed at me in Italian and walk upstairs, And I never knew what he was saying, but I knew it wasn't good. And then, it just, the guy in my block, when we moved around the corner, we lived in Brooklyn. He lived in Brooklyn. He worked for the Gretsch Drum Company. And then my parents, with my help, because with that little stupid set, I used to play some gigs. The first gig I made $7.50. And matter of fact, I just talked to the guitar player who was on that gig with me like last week, still in touch, him all my life. And he went on to make guitars called Citron Guitars. His name was Harvey Citron. So anyway, we made a little money. So I put some money up, and then my parents put the rest, and we got a new drum set, a Gretsch drum set. It was $325 with a snare drum, a tom-tom, a bass drum, and a cymbal. It was a real Zildjian cymbal this time. And that's the drum set. I every time I worked and did gigs, I bought another drum. I bought a hi-hat. I bought a seat, another cymbal stand, another cymbal. And little by little, I built them to the set that I had, that I played You Keep Me Hanging On with Vanilla Fudge on that set. And it was awesome. It was really awesome that I had that drum set, and I built it, and I played all kinds of gigs with that drum set. So that's it. So I played all kinds of gigs. And then in my family, there was me, my cousin Joey, then me, then was my cousin Frankie, my cousin Tommy, my cousin Michael, my brother, my cousin Tommy. I just said, there's like 6 or 7 of us, all on my father's side, that were drummers. So it's like the total. Some of us had the name, Appice or Appice, and some of us weren't. They were, my father's sisters. So they were the Salenza, and there was another one. Anyway, so there was like 7 of us, and that was like the Appice drumming clan.
So it was in the blood.
Yeah, and then my son plays, and he never took a lesson. He's got the talent, but he don't care. He's in medical, and he loves what he does. So, but he can play. I heard me and my brother were rehearsing our drum war show one day, and my son was watching, and we went downstairs to get something to drink. All of a sudden, my son starts playing, and I said to my brother, I said, "Who came in? Somebody come in? Who's playing?" I go up there, and my son's playing, and he sounds pretty good. I said, "Where'd you learn that?" He said, I play in the car all the time. I was tapping on the steering wheel, and I said, "Well, I hope you're not using your gas pedal as your right foot."
Yeah, exactly.
So that's where it all started.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, you mentioned, that was a set that you used in Vanilla Fudge.
Mm-hmm.
How did you guys come together, and where did the name come from?
Well, basically, we all played the same circuit of clubs, and that circuit was also Jimi Hendrix when he was Jimmy James. There was the Rascals, there was the Vagrants, the Rich Kids, the Illusion. Some of them made it. The Vagrants had Leslie West in it. The Rich Kids had Richard Super, who wrote a lot of songs for Aerosmith and stuff. And the Illusion went on and made it. But we were the first ones to actually make it. And we all played in the same circuits. And I was playing a club one time with my band. It was called Thursday's Children. We had a guitar player that played like Hendrix, which we had done gigs with Hendrix when he was Jimmy James. And Tim Bogert and Mark Stein came up to me and said, we're looking for a drummer. We're going to play this new production number, kind of progressive music. And we need a drummer that had a great right foot and who could sing and has technical abilities. And we've been watching you play. And so they watched the set I just played. They said, you seem to have all that stuff we need. So I was like, oh, yeah, I'm happy with this band I'm with. I'm making a couple $100 a week, $250 a week. I didn't have a day job. I bought a brand new 64 Chevy in 64. And, I was doing good. So, and, when you're in with a clan of musicians, you don't like to leave. It's like being married,
Yeah.
So I said, well, let me come down, check you guys out. So I went down and played with them. And after I played with them, I said, oh, my God. I mean, Mark Stein was an unbelievable keyboard player, an amazing singer. Tim Boger's bass player was ridiculous, and he was a great singer. And Vinny, the guitar player, was pretty damn good, too, and he's a good singer. And I said, wow. And they had this manager that had a huge club that everybody played at. Like the Vagrants used to play there and get 2,000 people in there. And they said that their idea is to do, what the Vagrants is doing, but take it to the next level, which really was what the Rascals were doing. It all started from the Rascals. And I said, you know what? And the manager said he'll pay us $100 a week whether we worked or not, to just work on the band and rehearse and get it together. So I saw some potential there, and to get a recording contract, which I never really thought about before. Before I was just like, I want to be like my drum teacher, play gigs, make a living as a drummer versus a day job. And I was doing that already. So this was like the next step up. So I took the chance. And then there you go.
Yeah.
It was the right move.
Yeah, I would say. Now, the thing that always struck me with the Vanilla Fudge was the fact that when you guys did covers, you didn't go the usual route.
No, we didn't. Yeah. We didn't do it. If you're going to cover a song, why do it the same way?
Exactly.
We'd always change everything, and I still do that to this day.
Yeah, but with you guys though, when a lot of times when folks change do make changes to a cover version, right, they'll base it off of the music itself and say, okay, well, it was done this way, we're just going to do it in a different style. You guys seem to match the changes that you made musically to the tone of the lyric.
Yeah, we did. That's what we tried. I'm glad you got that, because that's what we did. If you look at You Keep Me Hanging On, it was always like, set me free. I was very happy. And when you listen to the lyrics, and if you've lived those kind of lyrics, it's very emotional. And that's what we put into that song, emotion. If you look at Eleanor Rigby, get the vibe of those lyrics. It was a very eerie, churchy, cemetery, spiritual kind of vibe. And that's what we put into that song. People Get Ready. It was very gospel-y. So we made it sound like a gospel thing. Shotgun was like more of a party song, a rock party, and we made it sound like that, we just rearranged everything. And that's pretty much what we did. We're working on a mix right now for the last thing that was recorded with Tim Bogert. And it's the original band. It's a Supreme song, Stop in the Name of Love. And it's very powerful, just like Hanging On. Wow. Mark's vocal is amazing. And it's the last thing we got Tim to play, even though he was really, really sick with cancer, and he couldn't even remember. He had brain. He couldn't even remember changes. But we did it at Jorgen Carlson's house, who's the bass player for Government Mule, in his studio, and he was helping Tim with the pointing the chord changes as we went along, which really helped Tim remember where he was going. But as soon as Tim played with my drums, it just locked, and we had the bass player who plays with Vanilla Fudge now just do a track, so we had something on the track. But it never locked. As soon as Tim played with me, it locked like a glove. So we have my buddy Pat Regan mixing it, he mixed a bunch of stuff for us, and he did the Zeppelin album he did live with the orchestra, he did all my Guitar Zoo stuff. He's an amazing mixer. So he's mixing it. It's taken a long time to make sure it's right. And the first mix is going to be mono, just like You Keep Me Hanging On was mono. And
very
then
cool.
Right after that, he's going to mix it up into this. There's a mix online that I didn't even know it was available, because this was always mono. We never had a stereo mix that I know of. And online, I found it on YouTube. It's a Vanilla Fudge stereo mix where the drums are on one side and the bass is on the other side. I don't know how they did that, because when we recorded it, it was mono.
Mm-hmm.
And I had 3.4 million views on it.
Wow.
And I said, wow. So we're going to do a mix like that of this one. And then I think we're going to try and send it to Quentin Tarantino, because he put that Hanging On in his last movie. And it's been now over a year of royalties that have been quadrupled and more, plus the fees we got from him because of that movie.
Mm-hmm.
Legitimately, right after the movie came out, we got paid all the money for the fees. And then the first quarter after that, our royalty went up. Let me see how many times that went to. 5 times.
Wow.
each. In the next quarter, 5 times again. In the next quarter, 4 times. And now it's 4.5 times. And it has to be because of that movie.
Yeah, that's one of the things that always amazes me, when something will hit and people will gravitate to it, and you never know when it's going to happen or how it's going to affect things.
Yeah, and we haven't had the ability to go out and play and take advantage of this new audience because of COVID. Now we're working on some gigs that I believe are in August, and other gigs later in the year. And that's the first time we're going to play gigs, and since our royalties have been up. So
Yeah.
I'm hoping that that's going to turn into more people coming to see us.
I would think it would.
Yeah, me too. But
Yeah.
it's crazy. So anyway, so we're doing this single, and we're going to we were trying to shoot for next week to release it, because next week is the 54th anniversary of Hang It On coming out. And it was going to be a tribute to Tim Bogert as well, and Mary Wilson, because she died 3 weeks after Tim. So, but now we're thinking that it didn't hit the charts until July. So maybe because the mix is running late, maybe we'll try and get it out for that. But we're going to get it out for sure, or we can do it in this, September when the album hit the charts. There's a few times in 54 years ago that we could use.
Yeah, well, it'll work out the way it's supposed to.
Yeah, I mean, but the main thing is, as my mix guy said, look, I'm making sure it's going to be amazing, like the original. Even though the original was done like in 7.5 minutes, and I'm pretty sure it went down as mono. We did it all at once, and that was it. It sounded great.
Yeah.
Now it's like he's been mixing this for 2 weeks.
Well, I'll tell you, you talking about You Keep Me Hanging On. What was it like when you performed that on the Ed Sullivan Show?
It was amazing, especially just before we had 5 days of rehearsal in the theater, and we got paid for it, but really the money you get paid for it for 5 days work, and it probably was $10 an hour, but the amazing thing was when we were going down the elevator from the dressing room to the stage to go play the actual show, they had elevator operators. They didn't have the push button automatic elevator. So we were just down there. So I said to this Afro-American elevator operator, I said, "Hey, dude, how many people watch this show?" And he said, "Oh, about 50 million." When he said that, my stomach turned. Like, like it nerves.
Yeah. And
walking all the way out to the stage and the drums. As soon as I got behind the drums, I started playing. It went away. But that few seconds from the elevator, 5 minutes to the drum set, to actually start playing, I was pretty nervous.
Yeah, I would think.
But then afterwards, I mean, it went off so amazing. Everybody was claiming, and the reviews, the newspapers and radio and even TV was saying that, it was the most amazing performance that anyone ever did on Ed Sullivan, because it was so dynamic, it was so emotional,
Well, given who the guest list had been on that show, that's saying something.
It is saying something. We were like blown away. And then a year later, we went on again. And this time we had all the new stage clothes. And when we went on the first time, we just got back from England. So we had all our English gear on. And I had 126 bass drum. I went on the second time, had this huge drum set that Ludwig made for me. It was 226 bass drums. It was the first wood maple drum set. It had one huge tom in the middle, and I thought everything was bigger because it was louder. Because in those days, there were no real PAs, and the amplifiers were getting bigger, the Marshalls, and Tim Bogert had 5 cabinets, and I had nothing, and finally I got my own little drum amps later that year. But the set was so unbelievable looking and so different. I remember when we also did the Joey Bishop show, and they rolled out that big drum set, and the house drummer came up to me and said, "Wow, that's a beautiful drum set." He says, "What size are those bass drums?" I said, "They're 26s." normal bass drum back then was 22s. So these are 4 inches bigger, and and they looked enormous. He said, I play in the house band. My name's Louie. He said, I play double bass too. I said, oh, great, man. So he said, I live in LA. This was in LA. He said, here's my number. When you come out again, maybe we can get together. Gives me his number. I was like a fucking Joe pop star, number in my pocket. Didn't think about it. I went in the dressing room to get changed to go on stage. The number falls out, and I look at it and it says Louie Bellson.
Oh.
I said, Louie Bellson. Oh my God. And I ran out there and I grabbed his hand. I said, man, I didn't know you were Louie Bellson. Why don't you say you? He says, I don't like to push my weight around. What a nice guy.
Oh, wow.
So Louie Bellson's over there admiring my drum set. And I'm like, after the fact,
that had to feel good.
Louie Bellson was amazing, I had another crazy thing happen to me, which when I played with Rod, we were playing the Forum in LA 6 nights. And everybody came to see us, from movie stars and rock bands and Stones, and everybody who was somebody in that town came to see us. And one night he had Gregory Peck and Fred Astaire came to see us, and right not far after that, Rod got married and he had a wedding party that Alan Carter, producer, threw for him in his mansion. So we went, and as I'm there, I see somebody walking towards me, big guy. He walks up and he goes, hi, I'm Greg. He was Gregory Peck. Shakes my hand, goes, I'm Gregory. I said, yeah, I know who you are. He said, my mother would go nuts if she was here now. She would die. So, and he told me the story. He said, I was watching the show the other night with Fred Astaire. And he said, yeah. And he said, when you did your solo, Fred Astaire looked at me and said, this is the best drum solo I've seen since Gene Krupa. And I went, wow. Fred Astaire said that, and I'm thinking to myself, Gregory Peck is telling me this, and this is like, I'm in like fairyland here,
Yeah.
Yeah. So then he says, Fred's a drummer. I said, he is? I didn't know he was a drummer. He said, yeah, but he just don't know how to play rock. He just can't get it. So I said, well, look, I have a book, because I wrote this, one of the biggest selling rock drum books ever released. So I said, I got a book called Realistic Rock. It'll show him how to play rock. He says, oh, man, you got to drop it off to my house and I can give it to Fred. I said, okay. He lived right next door to Rod Stewart, Gregory Peck.
Oh, wow.
So we used to rehearse at Rod's. He said, next time you're at Rod's, knock on my door. Yeah, his door was, you ring the bell, these giant gates open up. You walk up the driveway and these like 10-foot tall wood doors, double wood doors, like a castle. So he comes to the door, and he's a big guy. Anyway, I wrote in it to Fred, I hope this helps you learn to play rock drums. Love, Carmine. I give it to Gregory. And I'm like, hey, Greg, here you go. I didn't know any better than to say, Mr. Peck. I did say something that, there's an old English funny line about him. They call it the Cockney rhyme scheme. When they have a pain in the neck, they go, I got a pain in the old Gregory. And I said, what does that mean? He said, I can pain the old Gregory Peck neck. I told him about that. He didn't know about that. And I thought that was funny. And anyway, I gave him the book, and he said, I'll give it to Fred. And then a couple of weeks later, rehearsing at Rod, and I get an envelope that says Ava Productions. I don't know who it was. I rip it open. I ripped the envelope, a piece, and throw it away. I opened the letter. It's a letter from Fred Astaire.
Oh, wow.
I got it in my studio. It says, to you, Carmine Appice, thank you for the book with a nice inscription. I've enjoyed your work many times. Love, Fred. I love Fred Astaire. I read that letter. I said, I can't believe this, It was like a fairy tale,
Yeah. Unbelievable.
Yeah, so it was great. So I've had a lot of great moments.
Well, when you see all the drummers, of great note, that cite you as being one of their major influences, what's that like?
Well, it's a good feeling, knowing that, and through my drum book, I've helped a lot of the drummers who are big now, like Kenny Arnold, Greg Bissonette, Dave Weckl. I remember when I met Dave Weckl, Greg Bissonette introduced me and said, this is Carmine. And Dave said, thank you for Realistic Rock. I said, why? He says, I went through it. I said, you went through my book? I said, oh my God. And then another time I was sitting in the car and I see somebody coming up to my left. It was Andrew Dice Clay. And he said, "Hey, Carmine, nice to meet you. Just wanted to let you know, I went through that book. What's that drum book? What's that name of that book?" I said, "Realistic Rock." Yeah, I went through Realistic Rock. I said, "You're a drummer?" He said, "Yeah, I played drums for years." He said, "My kids play drums, all this stuff, you know." I remember driving away thinking, how can I use this? I got Dice to put a little blip on the back of the book, you know. And he says
That's
something
cool.
like, "Realistic Rock is the Bible of rock drumming." I went through it and look where it got me. But it's really amazing, you know. Then I meet, you know, these young drummers that, you know, so, "Man, I went through your book, I watched this, or, you know, I learned that, I went to your clinic," you know. I mean, I followed the footsteps of my mentors like Buddy Rich, Gene Krupa, Joe Morello, especially Joe Morello, in the line of doing clinics. And Ludwig Drums was trying to get me to do clinics when I was with Vanilla Fudge, but I was too much of a pop star. Then when I wrote the book when I was with Cactus, they said, "Look, you got a book out now. Just like you go out and sell records, you do clinics to sell books." So that's interesting. So I did the very first rock clinic of any rock musician, 1971, at a Sam Ash store, for a Sam Ash store, in the bottom of a either a synagogue, temple, or a church, and I had like 800 or 900 people there.
Oh, wow.
And it was packed. It was like a gig. So from then on, I started doing it. I used to, you know, so I had the whole turf to myself. And the next guy that did a clinic was Cozy Powell. And then little by little, other guys started doing it.
Mm-hmm.
But I was the first guy to break it in. And every time I did like a Ludwig symposium, the symposium was like a rock fantasy camp. They would do jazz, you know, they'd have mallets like vibes and marimbas and congas and all that, and jazz, big band, and me. I was the only rock guy. I was always the only rock guy. So it was interesting because I met all these guys like Joe Morello, hung out with Joe Morello. The first time I met him, he brought me up and said, "Let's take some fours." And I was, "Come on, you're my idol. I'm going to take fours with you." Sat down, drum set, my arms were shaking. And I realized I can do stuff he couldn't do. So I did it. The following year, we did another one. And everybody says Appice or Appice. He called me Apache, you know. And we became really good friends. Then I did one clinic. It was a clinic gig at the Calderon Theater on Long Island. It was me, Joe Morello, and Buddy Rich.
Oh, wow.
Me and my two idols. I was like, I was in heaven, you know. I got that also in my studio. I got the poster. It was $5 to get in, you know.
Wow.
But these are, you know, great milestones in my career, you know.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you,
And Buddy Rich opened up for Vanilla Fudge at Madison Square Garden, fell for him, you know. And I saw Buddy peeking through the curtain when I did my solo.
that had to feel good.
That was amazing. It was amazing.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you were talking about your drum set, your Ludwig set before.
Yeah.
You had a big impact on John Bonham in his drum set and style.
Right.
Now, Zeppelin actually opened up for Vanilla Fudge. How did that come to be?
Well, not only did they open up the very first gig, we paid half their fee, Vanilla Fudge, because the promoter didn't want them. It was Barry Fay in Denver. We were already sold out. It was Vanilla Fudge and Spirit, it was like 7,500 people. It was sold out. And he said, "You know, I don't need them." And our agent was their agent, Zeppelin's agent. And my manager was, you know, my manager had a thing called Concerts East, and he ran concerts on the East Coast. And he was already tied in with our lawyer was Zeppelin's lawyer, was Hendrix's lawyer, you know, everybody's lawyer, Jeff Beck's lawyer. So we were all like under the same housing. So our agent was trying to get him on the show, and he said, "I don't need him. We're sold out. I don't need him." And he knew Jimmy Page from the Yardbirds. So our agent said, "I tell you what, it's only $1,500. You pay half, and the Fudge will pay half." We didn't even know this until 2001. You know, so we ended up paying half. They came on. They did okay, but people were yelling, "Bring on the Fudge," all the way through them. And spirit. And then 6 months later, they were as big as we were. But when John Bonham saw my big drum set, I've always been, from doing the clinics, and I've always helped other drummers. It's just a drumming thing. As Joe Morello said, nobody has it all. We all steal from each other. So I met John Bonham. We heard the album first, and I heard his foot on Good Times, Bad Times. And I said, wow, this kid is amazing. Listen to that foot. So then when I met him, he told me I was not the only idol. He had Buddy Rich, Gene Krupa, and me, and Mitch Mitchell, But he really copped my power. He really loved my power. And I had done that triplet thing on the foot on one of my albums that he pointed out where it was. I didn't do it repetitively like he did. I did it more like a bop, 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 like that. So he took that and kept repeating it like that, you know what I mean? So when I said, I love that, he said, well, that's great. So I got it from you. I said, I don't do that. And he pointed out where I did it. Because, even now, when we do stuff on records, I just play. I don't say, this is the verse. Unless there's a specific thing, like I'm writing a Christian song now, and the drum part, I want to be a certain way. So I'm working out parts so they fit like a glove. But in those days, we just played, and then we listened back to the album a few times. And how many times do you listen to your own work, So I forgot all about it. And he pointed it out, and I said, wow. And he said, I love that drum set. Can you think maybe you could hook me up with Ludwig to get an endorsement? I said, I'll try. I had big in with Ludwig. I was like one of the biggest guys at the time. And I was the only guy that had the big drums, and I was the only guy that had a maple drum set. It was the very first one. And I called him up and I said, listen, there's this band opening up. They're called Led Zeppelin. This John Bonham is the name of the drummer. He's really good. I think they're going to be big. It'd be worthwhile to give him an endorsement. So they said, yeah. I said, he wants a drum kit just like mine. So on my word, and I sent them the album, they gave him an endorsement, right? That had to be the understatement of 6 decades. They're going to be big.
Right? I was just going to say, you underplayed your hand on that one.
Unbelievable, and, and he got the drum set. And I have a picture on my phone, and we use it. We do a show called Hanging and Banging on Thursday nights. And in the beginning, we all different pictures. There's a picture of the 2 drum sets, me on the top and Bonham on the bottom. It goes by fast. But, somebody put that together and sent it to me. And there's a picture of John playing the double bass drum in 1969. We went on tour again together. And I often thought it was silly because you had my drum set, like sometimes we'd open, sometimes they'd open. So you have my drum set up, we take it off, and then John put his set up, the same set. I often thought the audience probably said, why'd they do that?
Yeah.
And, on that tour, we jammed with them and they jammed with us. I remember Bonzo and John Paul Jones came off a song, Good Times, Bad, How Many More Times? And then Robert and Jimmy did this violin and this vocal thing in the middle. And then, John and John would get back up and play. So Bonzo came up and we said, hey, why don't you and Tim go up? You guys know the song, right? He said, yeah, we know the song. So we went up and we knew the cue. And the cue was, so we did it. Me and Tim started playing. And Robert's singing. And he turns around and sees me and Tim and gets a double take and goes over to Jimmy Page and elbows him. Look at that. And he sees me and Tim. And they go, oh, okay. So we just continued and we knew the arrangement. And we ended it and the audience loved it. And then when we went on, we did Shotgun. They all came on the stage and jammed Shotgun with us. Those are the good fun days back in the day. That don't happen anymore.
Yeah.
Too much of a business now.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Well, I'll tell you what, for the sake of time, I'm going to try to skip forward here. There's so much that we could cover on it, but Cactus. Yes. Cactus is a band that really over the last number of years has really started to gain a lot of notoriety, if you will, from people saying Cactus was a big influence on me.
Yeah.
And now you're on your second group that is a big influence on people. Again, when you hear that, that's got to feel really good.
Well, it does feel good. I mean, one of the biggest influences that we created was, or had affiliation was Van Halen. I mean, you look at the song Eruption. Basically, Eruption was the beginning of a song that we had called Let Me Swim. We hit a big chord, and then McCartney did a guitar thing. Then we went blam, 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 and big chord again, guitar thing, and then went into the song. They just extended it. And, when we met them, they would say, oh, man, we're big Cactus fans. And I got CDs, not CDs, cassettes that they gave me of them playing Cactus songs, BBA songs. They didn't play Vanilla Fudge, and because it wasn't a guitar band. But Hot for Teacher, the template for Hot for Teacher was our song called Parchment Farm. A very fast shuffle that nobody else did but us. And they did a lot. Even another song they did with Sammy Hagar had this solo that we did in Evil in there. So there's a lot of influence there. When I was with Blue Murder, we were on tour with Billy Squier and King's X. As I said, I was always the kind of guy, like, whoever it was, like when we played with Zeppelin too. We had Zeppelin opening up for us, opening up for them was Jethro Tull and Mia with Vanilla Fudge, top of the bill. And I remember we were watching Clive Bunker for Jethro Tull. We just met him. Me and Bonzo were throwing spitballs at him, And when Bonzo went on, me and Clive were throwing spitballs at him. Of course, when I went on, they did it to me. So I was always involved with like the opening bands and, being friends with everybody because that's my nature, So when we went on the Blue Murder, Billy Squier, King's X tour, I knew Billy Squier and I didn't know the King's X guys, and there's that bus. I went on their bus. I walked on there, and what's on their speakers? Loud as hell, Cactus. And I said, wow, are you doing that just for me? He said, no, man, we love Cactus. We play Cactus all the time. We've always played Cactus. He said, you guys influenced us a lot, So those were just two instances that I knew about, But they were really good guys, really nice guys. And both of them, like from Led Zeppelin to King's X, they were opening bands,
Yeah.
But then they went on to become really legendary in their own time. They influenced a lot of people, including my project called Guitars, which I'm doing a 25th anniversary box set for. It's going to be out August 20th. And I have Ty from King's X and Doug on different songs. Doug is singing, Ty's playing, and as well as all these other great guitar players, including we just got Tommy from Kiss is on one. Derek Sherinian from Sons of Apollo and many other projects. He's playing keyboard like a guitar on it. And I put this band I'm managing called Kodiak, which is a young Van Halen. This guy, Chris Pigiani, he's going to be on it as well. And plus we got Brian May and Slash and Yngwie Malmsteen and Steve Moss and Paul Gilbert, Leslie West, Jennifer Batten. The list goes on. Elliot Easton from the Cars, Ted Nugent, Zach Wilde. I mean, they're all on this album. There's probably 35 songs on this box set. And we just remastered it. We just cut 3 new tracks. And this guy, Pat Regan, that's doing the Fudge mix. He mixed it. He mixed originally the other stuff. So, that's all coming out. But, when I asked King's X to do it, I had Brian May, had Ted Nugent, and King's X. I figured once I get those guys on the album, all the other guitar players would want to be on it because those guys are the cool guys. And I was right.
Yeah. Well, and that's not the only new project you've got out. Cactus has an album that's out now too.
Cactus has a brand new album with a new band, basically. Well, not a new band, new bass player, new guitar player. Pete Remy was in Cactus with McCarty because Tim was retired, and then 2 years ago we got James Caputo, who plays with me and my brother in Drum Wars, who's a phenomenal bass player. He's a killer, and So he came in, and McCarty, he couldn't really travel around other than the Detroit area anymore, from his physical. We're all getting older, Like I don't go to Europe now for health reasons, but I still play around America. And I replaced him with Paul Warren. Now, Paul, his claim to fame was when he was 17, he played on Papa's Like a Rolling Stone with the Temptations, the original one. So when we got him in the band, when we went out on tour, we said, hey, here's a song that Paul played on when he was 17, see if you like it. And we would play that, and we just played it. We didn't even rehearse it, really. And people loved it. So when we went in to do the album, I thought it was the first song. Paul said it was the second song we recorded. And so we went in and just recorded the stage arrangement of it, and it came out fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
And then we worked everything up like we normally did with Cactus. And Paul played with Rod Stewart 14 years. He played in my Rod Experience show. He played with Tina Turner. He played with Joe Cocker. Very well experienced. And in LA, he had a group called Paul Warren and Explorers. I remember hearing about them. And he's a good singer and a really great guitar player. So we went in the studio and we actually did everything the way Cactus normally does it. We started playing riffs, and then we jammed on it for 5 or 10 minutes and then said, hey, that was cool. Well, let's take that riff and why don't we put that riff over there and let's try and put it together. And that's how we did the whole album. The last song we did was the song, was it Evaluate? Oh, God, I can't remember the name of it. Evaluate. Is that the one? Evaluation? Do you have the record there?
Yeah, no, I've been listening to it, but yeah, that's I believe you're right. Yes.
Yeah, and that was a song I had for a long time. I wrote the groove and everything on a 4-track. I played bass guitar and all that, and I said, we need one more song. I said, what about this? This really fits what we're doing. And we did it, and Paul said, oh, I love that, and Jimmy loved it too. So we started playing it, and then we started adding to it. And that came up with the very last song we did. And it was awesome. It came out great. So I think it's one of the best Cactus albums we've ever done, production-wise, song-wise, and performance. Because Paul is like McCarty on 10. He grew up in Detroit. He plays the same style. And he's like McCarty on 10,
Wow.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, I thoroughly enjoy the title track. Really rocks. So and it's available on all platforms that you can get new music. So everybody needs to head over there. I'll tell you what, Carmine, I know you're on a schedule, so I want to make sure that we keep you moving here. So we'll wrap this one up.
Great. Thank you. That was a lot of fun.
No problem. I'll tell you what, everybody, we've had Carmine's website and social media and everything scrolling across the screen throughout the show. So please visit those places. Carmine, thank you very much. We appreciate you being on the show.
Bro. See you soon.
Everybody, have a good night.
Ciao. Bye.
This has been Music Night at the Majestic with Michael Boswell. If you enjoyed this edition of Music Night at the Majestic, follow us on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, and at musicnight.net. Music Night at the Majestic is a copyright production of Starliner Media. Any use of the accounts and descriptions of this program, its audio or visual content, without the express written consent of Starliner Media is prohibited. Thank you for joining us this evening. We'll see you next time for Music Night at the Majestic. This is your announcer speaking. Starliner Media.